Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the Talk of the Mac community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we're on the road to Macworld iWorld 2013, one of my favorite times of year for one of my favorite events of the year. In fact, it probably is my favorite event of the year, but we won't get into competition here. We're talking to some of the exhibitors, some of the speakers, a lot of our friends that are going to the show to see what they're going to be doing, what you can do with them because of their efforts at the show. This time around, we have Mr. Tom Negrino. He is doing two different sessions at Macworld iWorld, two very different sessions. Tom, it's great to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, Tom, we all know how this, those of us who submit speaker submissions know that we all throw topics out there, and Macworld iWorld has been looking for different things the last few years instead of just the old standards. You came up with two great topics. The first one is one that we'll touch on lightly because if we touch on it heavily, we'll just go right down a black hole.
Right.
And that's troubleshooting iCloud. And in a way, I'm sorry you have this session to do because it'd be nice if iCloud could just be perfect and everything would be wonderful, but it's not always.
That's so true. And, you know, I find that a lot of times people just simply don't understand what iCloud does. The most interesting thing that I've found talking with, let's call them civilians, just kind of regular folks who have an iPhone or an iPad, they just really have no idea what what iCloud can do for them. And my talk isn't really geared quite so much to those folks, although I will talk about some of the things that iCloud can do because I talk about that in my book, which is iCloud Visual QuickStart Guide. But mainly what I want to talk about is what to do with iCloud when things go not quite as well as you would have hoped. Sometimes you have problems with your data. Every once in a while you can end up with duplicates of your data. Sometimes some of the coolest features like the sharing your photo streams with other people doesn't quite work right, and there's ways to work around that.
And make no mistake, iCloud is a terrific service. It delivers a lot of value, but it is, sometimes a little finicky and can be a little bit challenging to get that full value out of what you want it to do.
Yeah, and a lot of people just simply don't know the amount of value that it has, and for free.
Yeah, there is that little detail.
And I like free services.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't? And I'm glad you brought up the book because that, to me, lends credibility to you as a speaker that you didn't just decide, hey, this is a great thing and put together 10 talking points and run with it. You've spent some serious quality time with iCloud.
Yeah, I think I was one of the first books to come out about iCloud last fall, shortly after iCloud was released, along with iOS 6. And in fact, I've just finished the second edition, and according to what my editor tells me at PeachBit Press, we should have that book available, at least in ebook form, by the time the expo rolls around.
Great. Tom, is troubleshooting iCloud something, and you used the word civilians, which is an interesting phrase. I may steal that.
Please feel free.
Is it something that we should all be intimidated by? Because there's this perception, at least I think among people that I know, that iCloud it's so much different since, as the truth, as they say, lies in the cloud. So when you edit something on your Mac or on your iDevice, you're not really editing the master set. You're sort of editing a different piece of it.
Yeah, and in fact, you touch on what I think is the most important part of understanding iCloud, which is that if you're going to fully get an idea of how the service works, you have to understand that what I call the canonical version of your data, the version that everything else syncs up with, is the one on Apple servers. It's not the one in your Mac or it's not the one on your phone. So by understanding that, that's how you can do things like resetting your iCloud stuff when things do go wrong. Again, it doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while, when it does, it can be really frustrating, and that's what I want to help people through.
And again, see, I told you, I don't want to take us down a black hole, but it makes us all a little crazy because there's that version of the data sitting on Apple servers. How do we get to it? How do we get at it? or don't we?
Well, mainly you shut down as much of your own stuff as you can, and then work on one set. Only modify the data on one thing at a time. In extreme form, extreme measures, you can actually reset the data on iCloud itself. But that's kind of an advanced topic that I don't really want to go into right now.
Yeah, and we'd be here all night if we did. So that's why people need to come to the talk. But that's sort of, I think, one of the things that you'll be touching on, and why people need to think about coming to this session if they're using iCloud and having issues, or if they are just planning to get into iCloud in a big way and don't want to have issues.
Yeah, and honestly, I am going to spend some of the talk just simply talking about the kind of value that you can get with iCloud, that just so everybody knows just the different things you can do. One of the things that surprises me the most is people don't understand. I just did I was at a family event just yesterday, a lunch with part of my extended family, and they were asking me things like, why is it that when I turn on my iPad, it tells me you need to back up with iCloud, and it's going to do that now? And I immediately jumped to what I thought was the real question, which is, why are you turning off your iPad at night? I just couldn't understand why they were doing that.
Yeah, answer a question with a question. I like it.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh, just because that's what I've always done." I said, "You don't need to do it. You just plug it in and walk away from it, and iCloud will back up every night." And they're like, "Oh, that would be easier." I was like, "Yes, it would." So,
yeah, because it's going to be sucking all that bandwidth and doing that stuff when you're not using it. You're sleeping. Let the machine work.
That's how it's absolutely designed to do. It backs up every night as long as it's plugged in and asleep.
Okay, so that's all the iCloud we're going to talk, because it's a trap, and we'll just be here forever. Tom, when is that the iCloud session, so that people can put it on their calendars?
It's at 3 p.m. on Friday of the show.
Great. Okay, so that's the first session we're going to talk about, 3 p.m. on Friday. Now, the next one is something that is near and dear to everyone's heart, I think, in today's world. And I'm going to let you read the full title, because otherwise I have to look down, and that's cheating. But this one, I think, applies.
I'm not sure I can remember the last the full title.
Go for it.
Okay, so it's The Last 50 Feet, Building Your Own Home Media Center. I think that's what it is. It's close to it, though.
And that says all. That last 50 feet will kill you.
Yeah, because there's a certain amount of distance between where you have your media, which is usually connected to your Mac in some way, and where you really want your media, which is in your living room. Your living room is where you have the big screen TV. It's where you have the really good audio. It's where you have a nice, comfortable couch. I don't do my Mac stuff in front of on a nice, comfortable couch, and it would be bad ergonomically to do that. So you need some method of getting your stuff in that that last 50 feet, or for those of us with larger houses, the last 100 or 150 feet. But you need some way of getting your media from where it is to where you want it to be. And that's what my talk's all about.
Now, that just makes it seem so simple, but just off the cuff, I can say the words Apple TV, Roku, TiVo, what else? Plex. There's so many options out there that for this, and they all have their advantages. They all have disadvantages. Do you plan to address all or most of those, or is this going to be strictly an Apple Tech kind of talk?
It's not an Apple Tech talk, because I don't think that Apple has necessarily created the best solution for overall. I'm a big fan of Plex. I'm a big fan of Roku. I used to be a really big fan of Apple TV, but especially now that it can't be jailbroken, I'm less of a fan of it, because now I can't run Plex on my Apple TV, or at least on the newest Apple TVs. In fact, here's a little nugget for your viewers that I don't think anybody else knows about. This home media talk was originally a jailbreaking Apple TV talk, And then it turned out that after the third generation Apple TVs came out, the 1080p Apple TVs, the community that does the jailbreaking is still not yet figured out how to do the jailbreaking. So I contacted the Macworld, iWorld folks and said, I don't really have a talk right now, so let me, change it into a home media talk instead. And they were happy to do it.
Probably a very good idea. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Oh, well, I could have talked about how, you can do a great job of jailbreaking and other stuff, but you have to find an old Apple TV. And that would have just been a silly talk to do. Because so most of the stuff I'm going to be talking about is I will be talking about Apple TV, of course, because it's a key way of getting of bridging that last 50 feet. If you're willing to accept the limitations that Apple wants to put on you, but if you're not, and I for one am not, then there are other choices, and they could be media servers with something called DNLA servers built in. They could be Roku boxes. They could be any number of things.
You mentioned DNLA, and this is one of the things I think that is frustrating for anyone trying to build a home media server system, is that there's so many competing standards, there's so many products out there, and they are not compatible with each other. It's almost like you have to decide, okay, this is the way I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to build this on DNLA and this on Apple TV, and then connect them to different HDMI ports in my on my TV and swap from one universe to the next, which works, but it's hardly elegant.
Yeah, and let's go back to that same point again. You'll do that, Chuck, but the civilians won't. So, nobody wants to mess with TV. They want it to be easy. And that's why we keep hearing this, perhaps inflated rumors about, some magic Apple TV thing coming up, some magic Apple TV product, because what they're really thinking is that, oh, please, Apple, save us from the nightmare that is home media.
Yeah, well said.
Please, Apple, bring your expertise at please, Apple, bring your expertise at making things simple to the problem of making video simple and making home media simple. And that's really something that still needs to be done. But in the meantime, I'm going to be talking about some solutions that I think are pretty easy to set up, mostly around Apple TV, around Roku, around Plex. And I think that for most people, they'll be able to handle it with no problems.
Tom, I'm going to make an assumption here about this talk and maybe give the viewers and listeners some homework before they come. What kind of decisions should they make about what they want out of a home media center setup before they start and before they come to this talk? Would that help them to maybe understand what's going on and what solutions are best?
Sure. For example, they need to figure out, where is my media? It sounds like a kind of a silly question, because typically they will know. But are they going to decide to, for example, rip their DVD collection with something like Handbrake, put it onto a server, and then have it available, over the network? They can certainly do that. Are they going to decide to get all their media through one of the streaming services? For example, through Netflix or through Amazon Prime or Amazon On Demand. Maybe they don't do any of that stuff, and they just have, say, a Dish Network satellite receiver, and they might occasionally want to get stuff. In which case, rather than set up a whole Plex system, maybe they can use, in the latest Dish Network receivers, they can use the they can use it as a DNLA client, and then they just set up a hard drive somewhere with a DNLA server. It's all possible.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, you mentioned ripping things with Handbrake. That sounds like something, oh yeah, I'd love to go that route. There's some time commitments in here to some of these things.
Oh, it's so bloody slow.
Because you better allocate a week to go through your collection now. I don't know that any of us have the collection like what's on your wall back there. If I'm seeing accurately,
actually, mostly that's books.
Okay, well that's good. That helps a little.
Yeah, mostly.
You mentioned server. Are you going to try to cover any home server options?
Sure. Plex is going to be the one I'm going to deal with the most. Because I think it's absolutely the easiest to use. It's supported by a lot of different entities now. Roku, the Samsung Smart TV stuff that they have built into their Blu-ray players and also their televisions, and several other places. Plex really seems to be the folks who are winning out. Which is actually kind of cool and unusual, seeing that they started off as a Mac-only media server. Usually us Mac folks are used to our stuff, kind of falling by the wayside. I mean, I myself have a very long and proud history of always picking making the wrong choice when it comes to home video stuff. For example, I originally had a Betamax, and I originally had a Replay TV instead of TiVo. I'm loud and I'm proud. I know how to make the wrong decisions. And one of the things that I want to do with this talk is I finally figure out how to make the right decisions, and that's the information I want to get across to people.
Well, hopefully right now with all the options, there are very few wrong decisions. They're just options.
Yeah. There's wrong decisions for you is kind of what I'm getting at. And you as each one of us who watches a talk. For example, if you're super technical oriented, maybe Plex doesn't give you as much control as you want. But if you're not, and you just want something which is relatively easy to set up and relatively easy to understand how it works, then you can probably do really well with a Plex server somewhere and a Roku box, hooked up to your TV.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I think this is going to be a fun session for anyone that wants to try this because, as you said, there are easy, simple solutions. There are difficult, challenging solutions, and everything in between. And it just is a matter of what you want to accomplish and how much time you're willing to put into it. This one I did look up. The session is Thursday at 1 o'clock, and so I guess we get to let you work in our living rooms first, and then take us to iCloud on Friday.
That's right.
Tom, where can folks go to see everything you're doing, find out more about you and these sessions and everything else?
Mostly my home online is my website, negrino.com, and that's negrino.com. There I mostly talk about my books, since that's primarily what I do is I write computer books. But I also blog with my wife, Dory Smith, at backupbrain.com.
And of course, as everyone knows, I'll have links in the show notes to all of that so they can find it easily.
Right. And I'm at Negrino on Twitter.
That's your online social home?
Yeah, pretty much. I find that it's interesting being one of the original bloggers. I mean, we started our blog in 1999, and it's interesting how much of our kind of social output we ended up putting out on Twitter instead of using our blog for that. Twitter, I wouldn't say that Twitter killed our blogging, but it certainly slowed it down a lot.
That may be a topic for another discussion, Tom.
I think it's a great topic for a discussion. We should do that sometime.
Count on it. Count on it. I'm putting it down in my notes right now.
Cool.
Well, I look forward to seeing you in San Francisco for Macworld, iWorld. And I hope we get to see a lot of the viewers and listeners there, too, for Tom's sessions. It's going to be a blast.
I hope it will be. And thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure, Tom.
Great. Thanks.
Folks, Mac Voices is the talk of the Mac community. We will be in San Francisco for Macworld iWorld. We hope to see you there, too. If you see us, Tom or me, please walk up, slap us on the back, say hello, and tell us you saw the show. Until the next time, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. MacVoicesTV is part of the MacVoices Group at MacVoicesGroup.com. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at BackbeatMedia.com.